Salutations, kindred souls. Welcome back to another episode of Lux Martin Enlightenment. I hope you're here because you're curious to discover my brand of enlightenment. Not the kind that floats above life, but the kind you find right in the middle of it. Not because it's better than yours, but in hopes that it'll encourage you to find your own version of enlightenment. Today we're going to talk about how words shape your world. This is going to be a much more practical episode than ones I've done recently in attempts to show you that part of this triad of mind, body, spirit is the integration process of all things Lux Martin Enlightenment. So today we're going to get a lot more practical, but I am passionate about this topic because I have noticed the incredible improvement it's made in my life. So, how words shape your world. How often do you catch yourself saying, "You never listen to me about this," or "I always mess this up"? Words, though small and often unnoticed, shape your world. Literally shape your mind and body and shape the world around you. They carry more weight than some people realize. Another thing that is important to note is that the way you communicate affects your connections, every connection you have in life, because the reason for human communication is connection. Whether that's with music, art, or your literal words, spoken or written, everyone communicates in attempt to connect. And so the way you communicate vastly affects the efficacy of your connection, whether that's at work, home, with your loved ones. They all have a context for how communication affects it and how improving your communication as a human will improve the connection level, as well as both of you in that connection getting what you want, whether that's, business or love or productivity. Effective communication creates effective relationships. So, we're going to talk about 7 phrases or words that are actually silently and quietly sabotaging your connections, as well as the swap for the better phrase or word that will transform the relationships in your life. I want to start off with just a little backstory in how important communication has been to me, simply for the fact of you taking a hot second to get to know me. I have always cared about being a great communicator, even since I was very young. That came out in the form of doing well in school, being a great musician in band, getting good grades in my English, in my reading, and my writing, and expanding vocabulary. I actually really cared a lot about being able to use mature words as a young person. Started at that age. I think what has most revolutionized my importance, or the epitome of great communication to me, is being a gymnastics coach. I've been coaching gymnastics for 20 years and I love it. And one of my favorite parts about being a coach is seeing the difference in how my effective communication gets better results, both in the relationship with me and the athlete and in what the athlete is trying to achieve. So it's a win-win for both me and the athlete, because my ability to communicate clearly, as well as in a way that they receive well, moves mountains, has made leaps and bounds in both the relationships I had with those athletes, as well as the human and athlete they became. And there are few things in life that are more rewarding than that to me. So that was what really spurred on my love of what is great communication, and look at what it does to my relationships when I communicate better. So yeah, coaching has definitely been that for me. And then, as well as in transitioning that type of communication to other careers, or into my partnership, my relationship with my significant other, our family, our kids together, in noticing how me changing things I did and did not say in those contexts, healing has happened in those relationships. Progress has happened in those relationships. New things are occurring and new developments are opening up between me and said other person in that connection of all types, because of the way I'm changing what I say and do not say in connection. And so to me, that is just so exciting and so powerful that it doesn't have to be some big woo-woo spiritual concept. Literally just changing what does and does not come out of my mouth has dramatically improved certain relationships in my life, and thus gotten both me and that other person things we wanted in life. So moving on as to, you got a nugget about me and why communication is so important to me. we're going to start with swap number one of this is the thing you are saying, and this is the thing you could be saying instead. Swapping out always and never for sometimes or often. This is kind of a 101, hands down first staple. If you didn't use any of these other swaps or tools today that I'm about to give you, removing the words always and never from your vocabulary will change the way you communicate. When you say, you never help me with this, or I always screw this up, you close the door on nuance, and you really are playing to a level of reality that isn't so realistic. Always and never are such hard polarity type terms that aren't often real. When you tell someone, you never help me with this, is that actually true? You have to ask yourself, is there a time when someone did acknowledge me in this or help me in this, or this did go a different way than the way I'm painting this picture now? And so they're quite extreme words that don't allow for wiggle room or understanding or open-mindedness to a different outcome of the scenario or the conversation. So instead, try using sometimes or often. And I've noticed this very dramatically, especially in my partnership. Doing my damnedest to not use the words, you never do this and you always do that. It's a very pointed, attacking type of phrase. And it shut down communication all the time in our relationship. And so when I was able to notice myself using the shifts of, this often occurs and this is how I feel about it, or sometimes I notice this is happening and this is what I'd like to do about it. I make room for maturity, for conversation, for flow, as well as I make room for the way the other person sees it. And so, hands down, if you did nothing else, swapping out always and never, removing those from your vocabulary and trying to say sometimes or often, it's not, you're changing your communication style from an attack to an invitation. Swap number two, name calling versus describing the behavior that you're observing. This swap number one and this swap number two, hands down, basic communication 101. If you were to remove always and never and remove name calling from every relationship in your life, you will see a difference. I guarantee it. I would put money on it that even if sarcastically or jokingly, you never use name calling, you will change the way people connect to you. You will look more approachable, available, and open-minded to different outcomes in communication, if nothing else. So when you call someone lazy, you call them selfish, you attack who they are, not what they did that you're upset about. So instead, try describing the behavior as, when the dishes pile up, I feel overwhelmed. Or when this happens in our communication, I feel this way, or this upsets me in this manner. Or I'm noticing that as this is happening, this is the toll it's taking on me, my life, my emotions. And again, you're keeping everybody's dignity intact while addressing the real issue. And I will say that the damage you do in name calling sometimes cannot be healed, cannot be reversed. Certainly not easy. I've seen in my own example where I've used name calling because I could not clearly describe enough what I was upset about in the moment that I reached for that. And I've left scars on people that I'm still working on healing today. So I will urge you to notice that the damage you cause with a name, even if it was sarcastic or joking in the moment, sometimes is much more difficult to undo than you would realize. Whether you want to undo it or not, I would hope you would, but I've realized the consequences of name calling in my relationships that are really hard to repair. And so just straight up removing that from your communication toolbox will save you from doing damage that you may need to repair later. And I will say that if you're in a place where emotions are so powerful that you don't have a clear way to describe, or you haven't processed enough clearly that you can very clearly and accurately describe without a name the behavior or the thing that's happening and how it's making you feel, don't say it. Don't talk about it. I can think of a very relevant scenario in my life where I was so upset and I was so perturbed by these things that were triggering me that the only way I thought I could describe what it was is by calling someone something. And it did monumental damage to the relationship because I didn't take enough time to process or find a different way to describe these behaviors that were showing up in our connection that brought up a lot of red flags in me. And I didn't have the best way to describe not only the red flags, but the way they were affecting my mind and my body, the way they were causing the response. And I should have waited until I had a better way of saying, these things are happening. This is what it looks like to me, and this is how it's affecting me. Can we change it? Not, well, these things are happening, so that must mean you're a this. Again, does really deep cutting damage that I don't wish upon anyone or any of your connections and relationships. So, swap number 1, get rid of always and never. And swap number 2, get rid of name calling for describing better and more clearly the behavior of which you are observing and would like different in this connection. Swap number 3, a little trickier, a little more subtle, is the word should. Swapping it with could or I want to. And I'll try to give you some more examples. When you say, I should be more productive, I should spend more time with the kids, I should take this thing out of my diet, you're creating the weight of shame in the connection or within yourself. It turns, you're putting so much pressure on a scenario that you often don't leave room for change because you're dealing with the weight of the shame or the guilt of what it is versus where you'd like it to be. So rather than saying, I should spend more time with the kids at home after work, you could replace it with, I could spend more time with the kids after work. Here's how I could do it. Or I want to spend more time with the kids after work and be more present in those relationships. So and so, how do you think I could do that? Let's create a conversation where pressure becomes choice, shame becomes options, and empowerment into new solutions. So again, subtle, but stop and observe how many times a day or in a week you say, I should be doing this, or you should. The phrase you should is very poignant. It's very, it's a bit of an attack. I do my very best on this channel not to say things like you should, because that would imply that I know better than you, and that's not what this channel is about at all. It's about sharing wisdom and experience from my life in hopes that you could benefit from it. So again, whether you are using the word should and turning it upon yourself and creating pressure in scenarios that you'd like to see differently, or you're using it upon someone else where you're finger pointing and saying, you should do this, you should be that, you should not do this, it carries very strong attack-like energy, and it's disempowering. You're essentially telling someone, you should do this because what you're doing isn't working, or you're not capable of getting the result you want at the way you're doing it. You should do it my way. You should do it the way I'm telling you to do it. You're creating disconnection and a hierarchy in a relationship that often disempowers the connection rather than empowering it. So should, it's a small one, it's a tricky one, but notice where you're using it and how could or I want to leave so much room in a conversation for further development. Next swap, the word but. That's an also elusive, tricky little 3-letter word that sabotages so much of what we say. And I'd like to give you several examples right now. Because when you think, like, it's just one word, it's just 3 letters, how in the world is that sabotaging what I'm saying or making what I'm saying less effective? Listen to a few of these. I love you, but it drives me crazy when you do this. I like what you're saying, but I see it differently. I want to spend more time with you, but I'm just too busy. I hear you, but I'm still hurt. I want to relax, but there's so much to do. I've seen me do that one, guilty. And I forgive you, but I'm still upset. When you use the word but, it cancels out everything you just said before it, whether you meant it to or not, whether it was a positive or positive and a negative. It's like taking the attaboy and crushing it down with a WTF, you know? So The word but may seem harmless, but it's actually doing more damage than you think. Yeah, it's not that harmless. So when you change the word but with and, what you're doing is you're creating the space where both truths can exist. And that's something that's very powerful and important to me in my life as a woman, as a feminine, as a mom, as a daughter, as a partner, as a coworker. Being able to hold both my truth and another truth, or even if they're both mine, regardless of whether they are or aren't, creates strength and space and safety in the connection where somebody doesn't have to be wrong for somebody else to be right. You know, you create the power and the space in the relationship for more. Even if those two truths need resolution, you're telling someone with the word and that you want to get there, that there's not a disconnect and it's me or you, it's right or wrong. So, for example, when you swap those out of, I love you, and sometimes we really struggle to understand each other. I want to spend more time with you, and I'm feeling really overwhelmed and busy. I like what you're saying, and I have a different point of view. I hear you, and I still feel hurt. I forgive you, and I'm still upset. You made room in those statements for both of those things to be true in all cases. No one has to be right or wrong. Both are just there and real and present. And then from there, you didn't sabotage the connection or the communication. You've opened it up to, what do we do about it now? So yeah, I thought that was a really powerful one. That tricky little word but, and how changing it to and really can revolutionize the breakthroughs you can have in communication with someone. Moving on to swap number 5. Overusing the word sorry. That one is another sort of tricky one that people don't often notice they're using. When you apologize for existing, sorry I'm late, sorry I asked, sorry I took up space, you're creating this overlying guilt for just existing, just being, just doing your thing, just lifing life. And you essentially take out the power or the weight of what sorry really means, especially in a time when you really need to use it. So when you flip that with gratitude, when you swap sorry for thank you, you're shifting the energy in your communication from guilt to appreciation. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your time together. Thanks for being here today. You're empowering the both of you to continue on regardless of whatever hiccup or awkward transition there might have been, as well as for the fact that no one should need to live in a state of feeling sorry for their existence or the manner of which they're carrying themselves. Another thing I'd like to point out is that when you flip sorry for thank you, you make the word sorry have the proper weight when you need to use it. So in the case where you genuinely need to right a wrong and you need to communicate to someone, I'm sorry for the way this turned out, or I'm sorry how this made you feel, you want that person to believe that your sorry means something. So when you remove the overlying sorry, guilt, shame from your life because you overuse the word, when you really need to use the word, it has the impact and the meaning that it needs to in communication with somebody else. So you're giving the proper weight to sorry, and you're giving gratitude and appreciation, the ability to flourish, and the ability to smooth out connections and awkward transitions in life and communication. Swap number 6, using phrases or demands like calm down or relax or it'll be all right. That's one of my favorite man phrases that people use in my life. It'd be all right. You're essentially creating disconnection with a demand. You're invalidating someone's feelings and adding fuel to the fire, especially in a heated moment when emotions are big. I'm a big feeler of the emotions always, and so when I'm feeling very angry, very sad, very anxious, telling me to calm down only makes it worse because you're making me feel like what I'm feeling isn't real or there's no space for it, and thus you just create a disconnection in the communication in the relationship. Swapping that with I hear you or I'm with you. I don't use I'm with you that often. My partner and I have really started using I hear you in our conversations to help keep the connection going, even in really difficult moments, even in moments where big emotions are present, where someone might not be able to as smoothly or clearly communicate as they could, or if what you have to say is a little hard to hear. When when you don't argue and you don't disconnect and you say, I hear you. Maybe I need a minute to sit with that, or I'd like a day to think about what you said. You didn't create disconnection. You kept pause going. You kept connection going even in a difficult moment. So remove the demands, remove the calm down, relax, take it easy. Remove the invalidating statement like that with, I hear you. And then from there, you can decide whether you need more time. How can we address this? I hear you is simply almost a pausing kind of statement for, I'm not disconnecting with you. Where can we go from here? Yeah. Smooth, but helpful, especially in more intimate connections like with your partner. When you're having hard conversations with people, or even at work, if you have to say, yeah, we're having this tough conversation about the way this is going at work. I hear you. I hear your point of view. That's real too. What can we do about it from here? And swap number 7, phrase number 7. Using phrases like whatever or okay sarcastically. Swapping it with, can we pause and come back to this? Very similar to number 6, but in a little different way. Saying whatever or okay, so and so, it's super invalidating. It's super adding fuel to the fire, making someone feel like you've slammed the door on connection because you no longer have the bandwidth, the ability, or the care to observe or matter. What matters to them matters to you. When you say whatever or okay, sure, in that sarcastic, demeaning tone, you're showing that person that you've created this space of disconnection because you can no longer entertain or make space for whatever it is they're feeling, going through, trying to communicate with you. Super invalidating, super unhelpful. I know a lot of people in life that say okay or whatever, and we all did that when we were kids growing up, being teenagers to our parents, whatever. It's a painful, low vibe, shallow type of communication that suggests that you don't have the ability to go there with someone. And if that's the case, why would someone want to communicate and connect with you? So using those phrases, it's going to get you shallow, not so great conversation, not so great communication and connection and relationships, because you're showing people that you don't have the capacity to go deeper, stay connected deeper. So swapping that out with, let's pause and come back to this. I'm trying to think of a great example. Most of the time, the point of saying, let's pause or can we put a pin in this, it's very similar to I hear you, in that you're not creating disconnect. You're telling that person, I need some space to integrate this or to decide how to move through it with you. I will say that the caveat to that is if you're going to ask someone, not even demand, but if you're going to ask someone, can we please pause? Or if you're going to say, I don't have the bandwidth for this anymore, can we please bring it back up tomorrow? You're putting a timeline on the reconnection point so that you're reassuring someone that, no, I'm not using this to invalidate, to get away. I'm using this to make space for integration so that I can come back and I will come back and connect with you. And thus, you help solidifying that trust, even in the difficult moment or the difficult communication point with, I need a little space to integrate or to ponder this. Let's come back to this tomorrow, or let's come back to this tonight after the kids go to bed. It's a pause, it's not a disconnection, and it's a transition to smoother results and communication later. Yeah? So in closing, the point of this episode was to express to you that the truth is that words create realities. Something I forgot to mention in the beginning is that psychologically, the language we use literally wires the way we think. So for example, when you use black and white words like always and never, you create black and white thinking in yourself and in the connection you're trying to foster with somebody else. So both literally, psychologically, words shape your thinking, your brain chemistry, as well as spiritually, words are energy. Words help shape the world around you, and the way you use them matters. So this was a great episode to very practically show you that these are some tools that you can use to be a more effective communicating human in the world. And when you do that, more of what you want should result, both in connection with others and in the desires you have for yourself. So I hope this was super practical and helpful, and a way to show you that here on this channel, we integrate all things mind, body, spirit, and the practicality of blending all of those things together, like something as simple and practical as not using the word should in a communication, isn't just woo-woo spirituality. It's real life, doing my life to the best of my ability and noticing the results it's getting me. So, hope this was helpful. Keep seeking, keep softening, keep showing up, and remember the light you're looking for is the light you already are. Take care.